Hey everybody, it's Dave with No Chaser, and today's topic it's gonna be a little spicier than normal. I mean, it's a genuine topic, and it came to me in the form of a short and straight to the point email that just asked, "What is your opinion on being in recovery as an alcoholic and drinking non-alcoholic beer?" Now, I think one thing that makes it a little bit spicy is that in the wider recovery community, or just the school of thought, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, there's actually not 100% kind of consensus on this. Some people may argue that there is, but there are differing opinions, and I'll say in my esteemed opinion, I'll say it's like this, because people that argue kind of for will say, if you're trying your best to stay away from drinking and you got kind of an itch, and if it scratches that itch without you actually drinking alcohol, and it's good, that's good. And then more of my view on it is that if you have that itch, you probably shouldn't scratch it, because then sometimes itches get scratchier the more you scratch it, and you'll scratch harder. And okay, we're gonna get off that analogy, but I'll be honest too. And through my years and knowing many people in recovery circles, I've known a few people with pretty strong recovery that had partaken in drinking and non-alcoholic beer. I know there was one that did it earlier in their recovery journey, but didn't do it anymore. They didn't really give a particular reason. But, in my mind, and here's the thing, I don't think it's a very good idea. And I'm not just going to say just because. I'll give some reasoning to it. When it comes to addiction and alcoholism, the sort of mechanisms at play, those things that where your thoughts and your mind get attached to behaviors, a lot of it has to do with two major things, and that's aesthetic and ritual. And like when it comes to aesthetic, I know aesthetic is kind of an artsy fartsy term, but essentially what it means is that the aesthetic is the certain style, the certain look, the certain type, that an artist has in their work. And the way I think about it is that as far as like being triggered or having temptations come, or the way that you see some things, the sensory things, the images, smells, stuff like that can really kind of send you into maybe a craving, it's about aesthetic, because it's not just stuff in general, it's certain things, it's certain images, certain smells. Like for instance, there's ones that are obvious. I knew somebody that they were super, and a lot of people, actually more than just one. There were people very triggered by seeing a syringe, and they shot up. So like no duh. And in fact, not even just seeing the whole syringe. Sometimes like just on the street, they would see those the orange caps. So that one's obvious. However, there is things that it doesn't have to be directly the substance or, the alcohol. Like I remember one time my mind was stimulated, and not in a good way, because of a shampoo bottle I saw. And it wasn't just like Head and Shoulders or whatever. It was in a hotel. It was a small shampoo bottle. A small one that looked just like a shooter. One of those single-use shots you buy at gas stations. And the shampoo, it wasn't like, conditioner brought to you by Jack Daniels. It just looked like a shampoo thing, and there clearly wasn't alcohol in it, but I was kind of like, because it looked like a very specific thing that was part of my addiction. Crazier, there's sometimes where if I find a water bottle, just a plastic one, Dasani, Aquafina, whatever, if I find it in some place that just like, let's say it was on the floor, or just in my closet for some reason, or just in some not usual place, to me, that's kind of triggering, because it reminds me of the old ways of when I would sneak vodka in water bottles and kind of hide them about. So that aesthetic, it's very specific things. And, if it's non-alcoholic beer, it has that design. I mean, it's made, that's the whole point of it, because it doesn't have alcohol. It's made to look like a beer. It smells like a beer. The way you crack it open, I guess that's with any can, but the opening the bottle, or just the look, have it sitting in your fridge. And here's the thing, I'll tell you this too. I am beer drinking wasn't really my thing. I can't even tell you the last time I drank a beer. I was liquor, baby, straight terrible vodka, cheap. But so I mean, I say that even having not been a beer drinker, and so I think it would highly not recommend it if you were an alcoholic and your main use was drinking beer, because then it gets into the second part, ritual. Very like the process of using and drinking and all that stuff. It is very ritualistic, and not just ritualistic as in you do the same actions, but you'll attach to your mind certain feelings too. Like I know some people that sometimes said the best part of drug use, if they shot up, was the preparing of it, preparing of the syringe and the melting down and all that type of stuff. Just that was almost the high in and of itself. And as far as when it comes to drinking, if like for me, I drank basically kind of all the time if I was drinking, all the time. However, I know with some people, some alcoholics, there are those patterns where they didn't drink at work, but they drank right after work. The saying 5 o'clock somewhere, or drinking at certain events, drinking at sport events, tailgating, or drinking when you go fishing or golfing, or drinking with the ladies and, get-togethers and all that, holidays, what have you. And so it's part of that ritual. And now with non-alcoholic beer, you have a thing that has the aesthetic. It looks exactly like, the alcohol. And two, you're drinking it like you would drink alcohol. Because, some people, some of the reasoning that I knew that why they drank non-alcoholic beer was because they would be in social settings and they'd bring the non-alcoholic beer and they wanted to feel a part. They wanted to be kind of a part of they didn't want to drink a soda or a water or, even people that went to the bar, when they were in recovery just for, I don't know, some get-together event, maybe, I don't know. But they would order a non-alcoholic beer. In fact, I did this, like, trivia night thing where it was at, like, a bar and grill type of place. So the alcohol was served. And a lot of the people I was with, they weren't in recovery or anything like that. It was whatever, normal people. And they would drink beer. And the person I was with would order non-alcoholic beer. And again, it was to be a part of that thing. And some people may say that, if you feel like you have to do that, and those probably are the best people to be around. However, a lot of times, this is not even anything to do with other people. It's kind of imposed in your own mind. Like, you may feel awkward because you're not having a beer. However, like, one of the things, too, is that you feel awkward because, you're an alcoholic in recovery and people are doing this thing that will destroy your life, but they're doing it freely and openly. I feel like that same thing comes with it. If you're ordering non-alcoholic, you specify it's non-alcoholic beer. It's the people already know. And some people, they order the non-alcoholic beer if they're around people that don't know. Again, that sort of thing to blend in. And maybe, not maybe. It is easier for me to say, like, I'm not gonna do that. I don't worry about blending in or I'll just have a soda or or Red Bull, something terrible for me, but less terrible than alcohol. But I'm fine with it. But not everybody has my sort of attitude or social disposition, and some people feel like they need it. But again, I can't make any guarantees about anything. But I would say more likely than not, it's probably not a good idea because it could really enact that sort of muscle memory. That's part of the ritualistic nature of stuff, where it feels like, to me at least, you're doing a thing that you used to do and you're reminded of it. It's somewhere in your brain. Again, it doesn't take the chemical a lot of times to release dopamine. It starts getting dopamine released because you're doing this thing you remember. However, once the chemical intoxication doesn't occur, your brain might be like, what's the deal here? It's kind of like Indiana Jones has the gold and then the bag of sand and he switches it. It's like, I feel like it's doing that to your brain, except your brain knows it's a bag of sand. You're like, I want the gold. Very old reference, but most people get Indiana Jones, right? Anyways, so I feel like for those two major factors, the way it looks like, kind of awakening those sort of very specific certain senses to you, the practice of doing it, the actual exercise, the actions you're taking that are just so reminiscent of the main behavior that you're trying to avoid. Like, that's why I think it's kind of a bad idea. Like, it's weird in my head in a certain sense because it's like, man, that it is very closely mimicking a thing that you are actively trying to not do. And you may just be like, well, I'm tricking my brain, or is your brain tricking you? And so I mean, those are kind of the two biggies. Some people could say, some non-alcoholic beers actually have a little bit of alcohol, point like 0.000 whatever percent. I'm not even really worried about that part, to be honest with you. And now there's like some like full zeros, like complete zero non-alcoholic beer. But again, I didn't think that's even really beside the point. Some people even would say though that the little bit of alcohol can open up neural pathways in your mind. Maybe I'm not a doctor scientist guy, but just for the fact of like what I know, how a lot of the patterns of addiction, of behavior, those triggering factors, a lot of that is involved in doing that. So, I don't know. I guess I would probably be like not recommend, but it's your life if you're considering it. Again, it's just me. I'm just a dude in a room with a phone, so take it for what it's worth.